as well. Peter Kelly.
Perfect. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, there's some t-shirts in the back, and there's screensavers, and probably the best bit of swag I have is the magnetic strips that block your webcam on your laptop. They're pretty cool as well. Yes, I'm Peter Kelly. I'm the software engineering manager for the engineering team in Cork. I started at NGINX about a year and a half ago. Today I'm going to just give a little bit of background about NGINX story, just to set the scene for a couple of minutes, and then talk about NGINX Unit, which is an interesting new open source project released by NGINX that's production ready. It's on version 1.2 at the moment. And just give a little bit of a demo of it then at the end, to keep everybody awake. So NGINX is, everybody knows it as an open source web server. So it's actually created and originally written in Russia. In 2004, a guy called Igor Sisyev wrote a web server called NGINX to compete with Apache. He was joined by his friends Andrew and Maxim, and they launched the open source project in 2004 in Moscow with a lot of love. We incorporated a commercial company then in 2011, and we launched a commercial version of NGINX called NGINX Plus. So it's kind of a unique tech company where we have a core engineering team in Moscow, and we have a headquarters in San Francisco. So we might actually take James Bond out of here and replace him with something a bit more appropriate for the Russian-American connection that we have in the company. NGINX Web Server powers 450 million websites, and it powers, it's the number one, which is what that stands for at the top in Russian. It's the number one web server powering websites in the top 10,000 busiest websites in the world. So it's used a lot. It's stable, very popular tool. That's kind of what everybody knows about NGINX, is that it has this open source web server. Not a lot of people know that we have NGINX Plus, the commercial one. We have actually a suite of products. We call it our application platform. I'm going to talk about NGINX Unit today, but we also have other components in this platform. NGINX Controller is an enterprise product that we've been working on in Cork a lot, as well as on some open source projects, and that's going to be released pretty soon. Before I started at NGINX, this is what I would have thought of NGINX, the web server. And I think it's pretty familiar with anybody who's used it. It has a reputation for being very fast and lightweight, and that it just works. It's also very feature-rich and configurable. But it also takes a bit of a learning curve to get up and running with NGINX. It's very hard to develop third-party modules, not as easy as it could be to plug into it. It's not that programmable in terms of an API. So some of these, NGINX have kept these really good stuff at the top when we develop Unit, and we've kind of tried to address some of the things at the bottom. It's a different application from the web server. It's an application server, but we tried to solve some of these issues that were there with NGINX. Okay, so NGINX Unit is an application server. If you're not familiar with one, this is where you have a program or a script, and you want it to be accessible as a web program. If you've ever used Java, I'm sure you know all about application servers. What's interesting about them, some of them are vendor and vendor neutral, but almost all of them are tied to a specific technology. So what NGINX Unit tries to solve is that we can actually run polyglot environments in one application server. So you could have a Python app, PHP app, a Go app, all running in one application server. This is a very, very interesting way of doing it. Not only that, but we can actually have multi-version support as well. So what that means is I could have a Go application running in Go 1.6, and I could have an application next to it running in Go 1.7 on the same application server. It's dynamically configurable, which means there's no downtime. So you can change and make configuration changes to your system. You can increase how many processes you want and reduce them without any downtime. And you can do all of that through an API with JSON, which I'll show in a minute. It's written in C, the same language as the NGINX web server itself. As we use a fair amount of different technologies in NGINX for some of our other products, but these core systems that are going to be running. If you look at the diagram on the side of the screen, it might look familiar if you've ever worked in microservices or service mesh, where you have many different programming languages, and you're going to configure and deploy them and manage them, something like Kubernetes, and you're going to have a service mesh running there to manage the networking communication between your services. So if you have any system that needs to run next to your application, it has to be extremely lightweight, extremely small, extremely fast. So that's why it was written in C. The internal design of Unit is similar to the way NGINX itself was originally developed. So there's a number of processes in Unit. The controller process here at the top is actually what takes in the JSON configuration and dynamically reloads the system. The main process controls spawning application processes for different programming applications, different languages that you have. And then the router is what actually takes in client requests and routes them then to the appropriate application. And this is all in shared memory over here. Okay. So just going to show a little bit of a demo of NGINX Unit. I'm going to show how we can run multiple applications in one application server. So what I have is I have a configuration file here in JSON. This describes what I'm going to launch in Unit. So it's a declarative file. You can see here I'm binding to a number of ports with some listeners, and then I'm associating an application with these ports. Here is the configuration for each application. So you can see there's a mix here of programming languages. We have PHP, Python, Perl, and Ruby. And the scripts themselves that the application is going to serve are pretty basic. I guess this just echoes out some HTML. So obviously on its own, this is not a web application, so this is going to be loaded into the application server. And I'm going to be able to say how many processes of this I want to run. So you can load balance between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 identical processes serving this file. Okay, so let's start Unit. So it's not actually running at the moment. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually load the configuration file I just showed you into NGINX Unit. So you can see here it's just a curl command. I'm putting this configuration file that I just showed you, and I'm sending it to this Unix domain socket. So by default it binds to a Unix socket on the host, so it's only accessible on the host, but you can put NGINX web server in front of it if you want to reconfigure Unit remotely. Okay. So what that means now is if I look at my processes, I'll see something that is very familiar from the diagram I showed a minute ago. So if you look at this diagram here, where we had the controller process, the main process, and the router process, that's actually what you see on the file system. So you see the main unit process running. It has a controller process for taking configuration changes, and then it has the router process for incoming requests. You can see here it started a number of applications, and it's managing these in memory. There's 2 instances of each of them running except the Ruby app. There's only one Ruby app. So what does that look like? So if I just stop Unit for now and show it in the web page here. So what I have here is just a basic web page being served by NGINX, and it's trying to show in 4 frames the 4 different applications that are running from those 4 different ports. It's not running at the moment, so let's start Unit again. Alright, so now this one application server is running and serving up a PHP application, a Python application, a Perl application, and this Ruby application down here. It's completely programmable, so if you take something like config/applications, it's going to list all of those applications that I sent it to be configured. If I hone in on one of them, I can see just the configuration for the Python application. Again, I can go further and further again down to the number of instances, number of processes that I want to run. And I can change that then, so I can say I actually want a lot more processes running. This would be similar to having multiple backends in a web server where you're load balancing traffic between them. So we give it a lot more. Okay, so if you look at the processes that are running again now, I can see there's a lot more Python processes running now serving up the application. The application is still running, there was no downtime, and I reconfigured the number of processes that I wanted to serve that Python application, which is the green guy here. That's it, short and sweet. NGINX Unit, it's publicly available, open source on Mercurial. There's a mirror of it on GitHub. Anybody can access it, submit issues, submit pull requests. It's production ready 1.2. You can go and check it out on GitHub. For NGINX, we have this NGINX Plus developer license that anybody can get. If you use these as the input on that form, you'll get a developer license for the commercial application, NGINX Plus, which is kind of fun to play around with. And there's some job openings, as Dave mentioned there at the bottom as well. So, thanks.